Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Crick House. Here we are again. You can hear in the background there Eli shouting boop from the bathroom. He is currently having a bath after a very long water fight. Hopefully you've been enjoying the weather like we have. It's been lovely and sunny here. And just before we forget, for this podcast, Oscar is back with his ukulele. And I am going to give him his word today.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Water balloons.
I was going to say exactly the same thing.
Oh, great, okay.
So water balloons.
I have some pretty close experience with those. So.
Yes, you have. Yes, you
Yeah,
have.
so for the last 6 or 7 days with the heat wave here in the Moorlands, in the Peak District, the boys have had this obsession with water balloons, and that means that my garden has been decorated in what looks like very bohemian confetti. Every day it is all over the grass. It's made its way into my bathroom, into my plug hole. It is almost as bad as the sawdust, which leads us very nicely into a continuation of the bus story.
So where did we leave them off last time?
I think we left them off. We were parked outside Solihull campsite in the overflow car park because we weren't allowed to go in.
That's right.
Coming back from Yorkshire.
We got chased out.
We got chased out from Yorkshire.
Yeah.
We are now currently waiting.
And then locked out the campsite.
And he's given us till 4 o'clock to find somewhere to live.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Yes.
God bless Mr. Mortishead.
Mortishead.
Mottershead.
Mortishead.
His nickname.
Oh, the nickname.
It's a
not
stage
a real
name. Stage name.
Stage name. So we come back from Yorkshire, chased out by a man with a pitchfork, imaginary pitchfork, and
whatever.
came back to the campsite. Was told we're not allowed back on. COVID rules, yada 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 yada. You have to leave your parking spot outside the campsite by 4 o'clock. And
We did. And
We did.
so we were
Yes, but we spent the rest of the afternoon sitting there praying, didn't we? And thinking,
Freaking out.
praying,
Freaking
packing, deciding, shall we pack? Some friends of ours in Surrey had said somebody a couple of doors down had a house that would be available. They weren't sure how long it was going to be available for, but we could go there. And that made the most logical sense to us to go there just for a few weeks. But then we were praying about it and suddenly felt that this wasn't the right thing to do, being that it would only be for a few weeks. We weren't too sure if we would get moved on again. And ultimately, however amazing it would have been, we knew that if we went back to Surrey, what would happen?
We wouldn't come
We
back.
didn't come back.
we come back. There's nothing wrong with Surrey, everybody
Surrey's
who's
lovely.
listening.
That's why we wouldn't come
Surrey's
back.
lovely.
That's why we wouldn't come
Yeah,
back.
that's why we wouldn't have come back. We would have got too settled
we would have got
in the
sucked back
beauty of
into our
Surrey.
relationships with our wonderful friends in Surrey. And it would have just been a real hindrance to what God wanted to do.
It would have been such a wrench to have to leave again.
Yeah.
Because Surrey is one of the fondest places in our hearts, still is. When we go back now, it doesn't feel like home, but it feels like home from the point of view that it's home as in our friends and family are there. And we love the people with all our heart, but it's not our mission field as in where we're supposed to be planted and settled.
No, absolutely.
So here we are, planted in the Midlands.
Yes.
And this morning, actually, just to start this off with an encouragement, I was reading in Psalm 92 about where it says, those that are planted in the house of God shall flourish in its courts. They shall be fresh and flourishing, and they shall still bear fruit in all old age.
Amen.
So it is incredibly important that we are planted by the Lord. And if you want to see the full blog on this, it's on our Pioneers and Praisers website.
That's right. So that's www.pioneersandpraisers.wordpress.com.
And you can follow a lot of our antics on there. We have a lot of moments where the Lord speaks and we blog and we share with the world, with the nations, whatever that might be. And there is some stuff on there so you can get and read it.
She means where Jamie blogs.
There's actually a lot of the children's blogs on there.
Yes, we have
we
blogged
did
as
some
well.
blogging.
Yeah, you
We
just
have
don't
some-
have writers
Guild in your
No,
head.
you do have writers.
Anyway. Okay, so we're sitting on the campsite. We have the piece to go to Devon.
In actual fact, can I just correct something here? We're going to have a marital.
Oh, dear.
He does have a writer's gift. He just doesn't know how to use the app. Admit.
That is not surprising.
Admit.
I can attest to this. Dad made some great stories growing up.
problem with the microphone.
This morning he was watching me do my blog and said, "Oh, can you put pictures in?"
Oh my gosh. What are you from, the Dark Ages?
Tech geek over there, host Hogan.
So no, I'm trying to build you up without tearing you down. Kind
That's
of.
not working.
No, it's not working. You do have a writing gift, and very often Gary will write something to me, and I will blog it for him because it is impactful. So anyway, yes, it is really important to know where God has planted you because you will be fresh and flourishing. That scratching noises in the background is not that we have large rats in the house. We actually have a dog that had a very bad haircut the other day. And
Let's not go into
we
that.
won't name who did it. It wasn't
Ariel.
a professional. And he is currently scratching away at the rug. I think he's trying to find his hair.
Okay, this is a life lesson for everyone. If you love dogs, it does not mean you're a groomer.
Yeah, you're not a dog groomer.
He's slightly different. So anyway, sorry. Getting back
Back
to
to the
point.
story.
Yes. So it's so important to know where God has planted you. And at that moment in time, we knew God had planted us in the Midlands. And we knew that if we went back to Surrey, having taken us out of Surrey and sent us to a land that he was showing us, if you like Abraham, we knew that we would look back and that we would be very easily, especially in this time of crisis in our nation, we would be tempted to stay and remain. And it would have been very easy for the natural circumstances around us to satisfy our soul and for us to feel just comfortable again. And in Psalm 23, it says, he leads me beside still waters.
Yeah.
And in that place, he restores my soul. Now, at this moment in time, it didn't feel like we were in any place of still waters, but in our hearts, all of us agreed, as crazy as it sounded, we would trust my very good friend in Devon, the fact that she said, there's a place to be here and you can just come here for as long as you need. We didn't know Devon.
No, we
We'd
didn't.
been maybe once on a holiday down there.
Well, we went once on a holiday down there, didn't we? And the last time we went was to Croyd Bay. And let's just say our experience at Devon wasn't great.
Is that Devon or Cornwall?
I don't-
think it might be on the borders.
I think it's that area.
It's the West Country.
Yeah, but our first experience of that particular area wasn't great, was it? Because it took us longer to get there than we thought, and we ended up getting there in the dark. And one of the only roads into Croyd Bay, is via a big cliff. And in the dark, if you look over, you can see the sea, and it looks like it's just a drop. And the road is thin, and it's two-way traffic, and it's very, very scary.
And Noah went the
And-
entire drive
and a
with his head
couple-
in a pillow.
that was Mum.
I had my head in a pillow.
A couple of us were absolutely terrified, and we were wondering how on earth we'd ever get a Croyd without having to take that road. Anyway, we found a back road, and it was all good. But that was our first experience of that area, wasn't it?
So I think those kind of things were playing in our mind when we were sitting in this car park thinking, okay, God, the only people we know down there is our precious friends who actually we'd met right at the start of Manor,
2007?
10, 15 years ago, maybe, not even before Manor was a charity. So this was our only experience, and this was a real Abraham moment. Go to a place that I will show you, and also a moment where, there was a Goshen waiting for us, and we didn't realise at this point in time that this was going to be it. So, packed the bus.
Yep,
We left the car in the car park.
We did.
Because we couldn't drive both.
which meant
They were actually very
the
gracious
bus was our
to
only
allow us to
vehicle.
leave the car there. So now the bus was our only vehicle, and we set off about 5 o'clock. Actually, no, it was later than that, wasn't it? We set off about 7 o'clock.
I must add,
We dragged it out, didn't we?
I must add, we had just managed to order off Amazon a China dinner set, just the basics one.
I remember
because
this.
we were fed up of eating off camping plates. I was so proud after a couple of months to have China. I mean, I don't know if you guys, you love camping. Camping's great. Melamine's fantastic. But there comes a time when a cup of tea in a Melamine mug, sorry, but it feels like you're drinking out of a hospital mug. And I was just like, oh my goodness, Father, I just need a China set. And I was so pleased. This set was in my cupboard, in this Wren Kitchen little cupboard. And it was there. And, this was great. And all nice and safe, in this bus. And we packed and we left at 5 p.m.
Yes, we
and
did,
we
yeah.
started to make our way down the motorway. Eli was quite young at that time.
Yeah.
And we kept going past Bristol, getting towards the borders of Devon.
This
and
is
the
where the
lights
fun
started
happened.
to
But,
fade.
by this time, yes, it was getting dark. I was driving in the front, and Noah was with me, I think. Everyone
Yeah, I
else
was
in the
next to
back,
you.
And we were banging down the road.
We were banging.
We'd just got onto the motorway to go across the border into Devon.
And then,
All of a sudden,
in the rearview mirror,
This is Noah's
well, not the
favourite part.
rearview mirror, the wing mirrors, I saw the lights of a BMW. And I recognised them because at the time, I absolutely loved watching Police Interceptors, and I could recognise the BMW's headlights. And I looked at them and thought, oh, they've appeared out of nowhere. That's a BMW. I bet it's a... And no sooner had I said it, the blue lights started flashing and the police were right behind us, followed by another cop car. Well, I say cop car, we're in Britain, aren't we? Police car. And they tried to pull the bus over. Now, heavens knows what they would have done if we hadn't pulled over. Would they have been able to stop a bus? I don't know. But the good news is we did stop, and we pulled over at the side of the road. And this police officer walked round to us, looking at this vehicle like we were crazy. And he ordered me and Dad out the bus. And he said, "What are you doing here? You know Devon is closed."
At this time, Eli and I and the other children were actually sitting in the back. And we started to get a little bit frightened, just to be fair and real. This was in the middle of COVID. You'd heard some awful stories about police stopping people and some scare stories as well, and how brutal they had been. And I was sitting there, just being real, as a mum, in the back of this van. The thoughts are going through my mind. I can't tell you where I live, and I have children in my bus. I was thinking all of these thoughts, that they would come in the back, that they would say it was inadequate, even though by this time it was a nice little camper van for all intents and purposes. Yeah. Why were we in a yellow bus, an American yellow bus, going to Devon?
The thing is, we got out of the bus and he looked at us and he looked at the bus and you could see him thinking. And then he turned around and he said, "You two don't strike me as the sort of people that would be driving a yellow bus and coming for a jolly. He said, you don't look like the sort of guys that would be
flouting the rules of the boundaries we were allowed to drive in.
Yeah, we weren't surfer dudes. We weren't on our way to Devon to
go to our holiday home.
Radical, man. Mm-hmm. So he said, so what's the excuse? Why are you here?
And you explained.
I did explain.
We did explain.
Bear in mind, this police officer looked like Arnold Schwarzenegger and got out of this BMW Interceptor and was very intimidating and had two what technically looked like trainee police officers with him who were trying hard not to laugh in the background and were more interested in the bus than what we were doing there.
Yes.
Well, I have to say at this point, while you're dealing with Arnold Schwarzenegger in the front, in the back, our little boy had suddenly burst into speaking in tongues. And I kind of
5-year-old Eli
looked at him and kind of went, huh? And there was Mummy, by this time, ashamedly, a little bit worried with some tears coming down her face, praying. But Eli grabbed my hands and started praying off in tongues. Said, it's all right, Mum. God's got this. God's got this. And we were sitting there literally in the pitch black by this time in the back of the van. And all the van was illuminated by was blue flashing lights. It was a pretty scary situation to be in, to be fair. And suddenly Gary opened the door and Gary and Noah got in and these lights went away. Yeah. And Dad came into the back and said to us,
you're not going to believe this, but that police officer has just said to us these words: I have very little compassion in my heart, and the one piece of compassion I could possibly find, you have just found. Go to the farm that you're staying on. Do not return. We are watching you.
Yes.
do not pass go.
You cannot leave Devon.
Do not collect
you are now
£100.
stuck in
Yeah.
Devon.
License
You
plate.
will stay
He
there.
said, if you try to leave Devon, our cameras will see you and we'll get you. But the best part was when this chief constable, or whatever he was, looked at his two lower rank, I don't know the proper terms, he said to them, right, let them in, put it down to my name. He got back in his Beamer and drove off. And as soon as he'd driven off, these two trainees or whatever they were looked at us and went, your bus is so cool.
Can I see
what
it?
engine size is it? Can I have a look? And it's like, you were professional the second ago,
Yeah.
you know? Yeah. Okay.
So after breathing a few breaths in the back, we were absolutely rejoicing, singing praises to the Lord. But the same thought was going through our head. Oh my word, what if we don't like Devon? We are stuck until this COVID crisis ends. But you know what? We just kept going with trust in our heart. And what we didn't, I don't know if we've even said this was Good Friday.
Yes, it was. It was Good Friday.
This was
that's
Good
right.
Friday. And it's certainly not been a very good Friday to start with from the respect of what we were going through. But we're holding on to the fact that Good Friday brought victory and trusting in the covenant that Jesus had made for us, that on Good Friday he had broken the power of sin and death and the grave, and that he was going to bring victory into this situation for us. So praising God, singing songs, we ended up in Dartmoor in the pitch black.
Yep.
No street signs,
About 11 o'clock at night.
no street lamps.
Well, the best part was we drove through this village, didn't we? We started driving through little places in Devon, and then we drove through this village.
We
and
thought, this is all right.
"Oh, this looks nice.
These villages,
And
yeah.
the sat nav said, turn right. So we turned right past this big coach storage area, and we ended up driving right into the middle of the Dartmoors.
Dartmoors.
And we kept going.
Deserty
we
Dartmoor.
were sort of looking at the sat nav going,
Oh,
we're not a car. We're a dirty, great big American school bus.
Are we gonna
If
get
you get
down
us in
this
trouble,
lane? Cattle grids.
we're stuck. Yeah, we had to go through a cattle grid. We almost didn't fit
let's
through.
tell the story of the cattle grid.
Is there a story of the
Yes,
cattle grid?
so we are Gary's bringing this lovely big American school bus down these Dartmoor lanes. I'm looking out the window, not seeing anything because it's pitch black, and suddenly we hit the
Oh.
and my cupboard flies open and my china plates go smashing all over the floor.
Back to plastic.
Yes, including some of the food came flying out the fridge, and I'm sitting there with my feet surrounded by eggs and plates and everything else thinking, oh, Father, can this day get any better?
And Noah and I were in the front, wondering where we were, trying to suppress laughter.
But
It
suddenly,
was, yeah.
from the Dartmoors appeared a light. We could
Yes,
see the light.
yes.
Oscar, what was the light? The
light
beacon. Yeah,
is-
exactly.
Okay, so we drive into this dark farm, and this light is it's about man's head level coming towards the bus, and it is a man's head because it's the farmer. And no offense to the gentleman, he's a wonderful, wonderful guy. But at the time, in the situation we were in, it sort of
was scary.
It was a bit scary because he was there with quite wild Devonish hair, and his big light strapped to the front, and he was just walking along from the fields with a torch stuck to his head.
It looked like a mad professor.
He did. Let's just be honest. You're a wonderful person. But
He did at that moment.
He did.
He eventually became incredibly special to
Oh, he
us.
did.
Yes.
But this lovely gentleman, are you Gary and Jamie? Well, yes, we were the ones in the bus. And directed Gary through a gate. And here was Gary thinking that this field would be lovely and flat, and we would just drive straight in and straight into the middle of the pigs, which was obviously what was on all our minds.
I could not drive into this gate. I had to reverse in, so I had to go past the gate and then reverse back into the gate. And imagine the big yellow bus has got a huge overhang on the back of it. We're talking like a 6-foot overhang. And I couldn't see a thing. I literally saw nothing. And I had to reverse back into this field, trusting the farmer and Noah, who by this time had got out. And they were both trying to guide me. And the incline took me by surprise. Because all of a sudden the bus, I nearly took off down this hill. I managed to slam the brakes on in time. But it was a very steep slope going down, wasn't it?
It was indeed, and there were the children and I hanging on in the back, surrounded by eggs and smoke and broken china. And this lovely gentleman told us to turn in and keep turning, and we eventually got through these gates and turned into what was like a rough ground area. As Gary pulled the bus lights into what was like a rock that had been dug out, all I could see around us was cars and metal. And, obviously this is where this gentleman had stored all his, bits and pieces from around the place that he didn't need, but told us to reverse in and all would be well. It was not until the morning that I realised exactly where God had put us, because that morning God had given me a word when I was spending time with him that he was going to hide us in the cleft of a rock. And I thought, what does that mean, God? And in the morning when we woke up, you'll understand why. But as Gary reversed the bus into this dugout rock face, I was in a bit of a way, I have to say. I was shattered. We were hungry. We were tired. I had no clue who this lovely gentleman was with the mad torch that was flashing around our bus. There was no electricity at this point hooked up to our bus. We didn't know where we were. We were convinced we were in the middle of prodigal son pig farming.
Yes.
And as the bus backed in to this cleft of the rock, I looked out the front window screen and I just heard the Spirit of God say to me, I've got you. And as Gary backed and the window screen came into view, straight out the front of our window screen on this gentleman's barn was a lit up cross.
Yeah.
Good Friday, 10 to midnight, just before we turned into Easter Saturday. In the centre of our screen was a lit up cross. And it was just like God saying, trust me, I have got you.
It was about 10 foot high. It was on the apex of the barn, and it was like a Belisha beacon in the middle of Dartmoor.
Yeah.
You couldn't miss it, but it wasn't
No.
until we turned the bus around that we actually saw it.
In fact, we became very fond of this as sort of like a landmark. If we went for evening walks and the nights drew in, all we needed to do was look for the cross and dodge the big Highland cows as we went back to
I
the
mean,
bus.
we were
They were
deep.
great.
We were deep enough into the Dartmoors where there was no light pollution.
No, there was none. The stars, we could just imagine what Abraham went through when God said, look at the stars. You know, I mean, that was just stunningly beautiful.
Yeah.
So the next sort of hour was a case of everyone go to bed, just jump into beds while mum and dad tried to clear up the eggs and the china and have a few tears and have a hug and think, okay, God, we trust you. And snuggling down tonight on Good Friday in the middle of Dartmoor, expecting to wake up surrounded by pigs and mud, we went to sleep.
Well, I mean, I remember that night actually. We were standing on the stool and we popped the skylight, which sadly we removed off our bus. But we popped the skylight and we looked out, and all we could see really was black around us, the cross, and then the stars above us. I remember us going to bed that night and waking up the next morning. And
Are we doing the next morning
Are we
now,
doing the next
or is that
morning,
the
or-
next episode?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe that'd be a good cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Let's leave it there. And then we
Where
woke up the
did
next
we wake
morning,
up? Where did
sleeping
we
on
wake
this what we thought was a pig farm.
Well, it could have been.
It could have been.
It might have been a pig farm.
There were certainly some pigs that we lived with.
Oh yes, absolutely, Noah.
Little family joke there.
let's just leave it on this, shall we?
Oh, ouch!
Jamie-
Hang on, there's just pennies just dropped.
Jamie
We're
just
gonna have
said-
discussions after this.
Jamie just said that she'd felt something to do with the cleft of the rock. And whilst we're in it, Exodus 33:22 says, "So it shall be while my glory passes by, that I will put you in the cleft of the rock, and cover you with my hand while I pass by."
Mm-hmm.
Something.
were-
Sorry, go on.
I'm going to say, we were most definitely in the cleft of a rock.
Yeah, we can leave you on this. So, absolutely, God had to hide the yellow bus because in the Dartmoors, like in the Peak District, there are certain rules on national parks that certain vehicles or structures can't be seen or be an obstruction. Now,
Yes.
as lovely as we love Big Yellow, she is big, she's yellow, she's a banana, and she would hardly hide in the greenery
No.
of Dartmoor.
Well, unless you parked her in a gorse bush. A
Yes,
big one.
This is true. So the fact that God said, I'm going to hide you in the cleft of a rock, you know, we'd overcome the police, but the Dartmoor National Park was another thing.
Yes, ma'am.
And
They're
this
authority unto themselves,
and this
aren't they?
gentleman's had issues before with having things on his land. So the fact that God had actually tucked us up in the cleft of a rock, and I'll leave you on this. We woke up the next morning and popped the skylight and looked around, and we were literally hidden in the cleft of a rock, an old silo pit.
Yeah.
One side was cars,
Yeah.
the other side was metal and
Yeah.
rusted up springs and all kinds of things.
But it was a 20-foot wall all around us, wasn't it? Chalk wall.
Absolutely. And as we turned around, we soon realised that we were in, and we'll tell you that on the next
Yeah.
episode.
There was a field behind us, full of animals, of which we will leave nameless.
But we won't tell you where we were,
No.
or what we were doing,
No, absolutely.
or what it was like, or how we coped,
Or what we saw.
until next
How many hook points can we give them
morning.
here?
Yeah, well, we're going to wake up on Easter morning next time, so make sure you tune in.
Absolutely.
So, just to say, you know, if it looks like right now things are crazy and you are not seeing the fruit of God in your life, take a moment. Psalm 93 says, "Those that are planted in the house of God shall flourish. They shall be fresh and flourishing. They shall bear fruit in old age." He plants us in the house of God. He plants us in a body. It may not make sense to our natural mind. It may not make sense to what we want as a person or as a family or the area that we want to be in. But if God has planted you somewhere, don't uproot yourself.
That's right.
And that is why we chose not to go back to Surrey at this moment in time, because we knew God had sent us to be in Birmingham, to be part of West Bromwich, to be part of an amazing church there. And we knew that if we went back to Surrey, we would have all the temptation to return.
Absolutely.
And we knew that we needed a stopgap so we could get back to the place that God planted our family in.
That one Burger King in Surrey would have just sealed the deal for
It
me.
would have done. It would have
Sorry, everybody down there, but it was the Burger King.
And Lynn's meals.
Oh,
Oh, Lynn's
Lynn and
cakes.
Dwayne's meals and cakes.
Ooh.
I'm sorry, that would have been a desperate cry.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
As long as Dwayne could keep his food on the fork. But that's another story. Anyway, we'll leave it with this one, okay? Talking of refuge, the Lord said in Psalm 91, verse 2, I will say, this is what we did in the morning. We woke up in the morning and this was literally on our lips. I will say of the Lord, He is our refuge and our fortress, our God.
in
In
whom?
Him we will
trust.
Amen.
We trust. So, Oscar,
Yes.
are you ready with your water balloons?
I think so.
The water balloon song.
He's currently being attacked. Well, not attacked. He is being fussed by Pip, who has the biggest paws ever. He's like a miniature sheepdog. He's like a Dulux dog, but in mini form.
Yeah. All right. Over to you, Maestro.
Wide. Okay. Right, you can't see, but I'm trying to balance my iPad as a turbo case. Because, there we go. Right, there we go. Okay. So this is a personal experience of what happened this afternoon. Okay, so... hold on. There we go. That'll do. Oh, when the summer's here and the sun is bright, when the sky is clear and the evening's light, when the climbing heat gets you hot and sweaty, you better watch out and you better be ready, 'cause out the door comes a bunch of boys with a washing basket full of coloured toys, coloured balloons that are filled with water, and if you see 'em, you really ought to run, because it's flying through the air. Just run, there's water everywhere. Just run, because it gives you quite a scare. It's a bunch of loons with water balloons. Just run, 'cause there's water everywhere. Just run, they're flying through the air. Just run, because we'll give you quite a scare. We're a bunch of loons with water balloons. Oh, da 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 da. Water balloons.
And there we go. A bunch of loons with water balloons. Absolutely brilliant.
Made up on the spot.
Definitely. Well, there we go. All that's left for us to say, I think, then, is from all of us here at the Crick House, it is a big goodbye. There we go.
Bye, everybody.
So, thank you again so much for joining us. We are, just as we always say, so privileged to have you on this journey with us. Listen, as a family, over the next couple of months, we're going on a lot of missions trips. So please forgive us if there is any weeks where maybe an episode comes out a little bit late or a little bit early. We are doing a lot of missions work in the coming months, which is super exciting. So please be praying for us as we go doing that, and praying for God's wisdom for us as well, as we go and minister in so many different areas. It's going to be absolutely amazing. So, also, if you feel a heart for my family or a heart for our ministry, or want to help us keep going with this podcast and reaching more people, or support us on our missions trips, we would welcome your help and your support. You can do that at www.mannatheatrecompany.uk and click on donate. On there's a section where you can personally support our family. So if that's something you'd like to do, we would absolutely love that and be so grateful to you. So, until next time, thank you so much for being with us, and we will see you soon.